I wore a gold dress to my best friend's wedding, and it exposed his wife's cold black heart because she exploded at me for ruining her special day. For some context, my 30F best friend Dan, 30M, got married to Lauren, 27F, yesterday. Dan and I have been best friends since high school, and despite always being platonic with no romantic interests on either side, his now wife Lauren has always disliked me. In their 3 years of dating, I have not been allowed to see Dan alone because she feels that it's suspicious that I want to hang out with him. Honestly, I just missed my friend. Despite me being happily married, she's always kept me at arm's length. I always figured this was because she's from a very conservative family. Dan has spoken to her multiple times, and after she'll back off for a bit before reverting to complaining about him being friends with a girl again. It's not ideal, but she makes Dan happy, so I made my peace with it. That brings us to the wedding. Originally, I was going to be in the groom's party, but Lauren ended up crying, saying a wedding is not a place to swap gender roles. Dan was fighting her on this, but I told him I would just attend as a guest and not to choose this hill to lay on. The dress code was warm tone garden party, and we were encouraged to wear earthy warm colors. I picked out a bronze/orange dress that I thought fit this perfectly, and the style even matched some examples they gave. In short, I thought I had nailed it. The wedding went great. However, at the reception, Lauren dragged me aside and said, "I cannot believe you would wear gold to my wedding. You're not the first prize, you're just effing trashy." I was so shocked in the moment I just stared at her. She practically screamed at me to leave, and she was drawing attention, so I grabbed my husband, said goodbye to Dan, and left. Dan reached out after and told me he was upset I left his wedding so soon. Lauren's mom has texted me saying I ruined the wedding for her daughter and that I'm stupid for wearing a gold dress. She's saying it's as bad as wearing white. I was genuinely not aware this was a thing. I want to reach out to Dan to explain, but I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. I don't even think my dress is gold colored. Update 1. Wow, guys, I genuinely didn't know what to expect posting to strangers on this, but I am so thankful to my husband for suggesting this. I needed a non-biased view on this wearing gold to a wedding issue, and now it's clear that that was never the issue. Many of you asked if the dress I wore stood out, and honestly, I know I'm biased saying this, but I genuinely don't think so. Another girl was wearing the exact same dress but in dark red, which we had a laugh about. Slip dresses are a pretty common wedding guest dress where I am, and it was the type of dress that was recommended by the bride. I think many of you were right in saying that it was never about the dress, but how I looked wearing it. It turns out Dan found out pretty quickly what actually happened and called me last night. Apparently, Lauren's mom had told him I was really drunk and told Lauren her dress wasn't it, so I was requested to leave. Dan had his suspicions that it was BS, but it wasn't until his mom called him that confirmed it. It turns out she was nearby when Lauren pulled me aside and, ironically, was actually wearing a yellow gold dress. She tore him a new one about letting Lauren treat me like that. Dan didn't have a solution when he called. I could tell he was emotionally exhausted and pretty defeated. He said he wished I had taken it out on the open bar rather than leaving, but he understood why I left. He thanked me for taking the high road and said that it hasn't gone unnoticed. He apologized for what happened, saying this is an ongoing fight between him and Lauren. For all of those who said Lauren just hates me, it turns out it's 100% true. Apparently, she has been trying to convince Dan to cut me off because that's what a good husband does. He said he thought she had gotten over it now that they were married. I told him that he needs to focus on his happiness, and that I will always be here to support him and that I will take a step back if that's what he needs. They were supposed to leave for their honeymoon yesterday, but when Dan called, they were still at home, so who knows. I've blocked Lauren and her mom and forwarded the messages to Dan as recommended. Thanks again everyone for your comments and judgment. Update 2. So, it's been a couple of months and a bit has happened. The situation seemed to resonate with quite a few people, so I thought I would provide a final update. Thank you to everyone who has messaged, it did help me feel a little less crazy during this time. So, Lauren ended up finding the post on TikTok and was understandably pissed. She called me from Dan's phone and started screaming at me, saying I had ruined her wedding and that I knew what I was doing wearing a dress like that to the wedding. After the initial shock of expecting Dan and getting Lauren screaming, I yelled, "What kind of dress? The same cut that Amy wore? Jesus, I just can't win with you. Dress nicely, and I'm out to get you. Dress casually, and I'm not putting in any effort. I've tried so hard with you, but I'm done." Then I hung up. I messaged Dan, saying, "I clearly can't be in your life with everything the way it is right now. Good luck, and I'll always be a call away," before blocking the number, which broke my heart. That was 3 months ago, and I didn't hear anything except from Dan's mother, who said Lauren wouldn't stop complaining about me, and life continued. In this time, I also discovered I am pregnant. My husband and I made a post a couple of weeks ago announcing this, which made its way to Dan, and he turned up at my front door a few days after. We talked over many drinks on his end and mocktails on mine. He told me that he always thought it was the right thing to do to listen to your partner's boundaries and insecurities, and that Lauren has a lot of body image issues which resulted in her being suspicious of other women. So he thought the right thing was to support her, but he got lost in setting his own boundaries when it came to how she controlled his interactions with his friends. He said the whole situation forced him to think about her boundaries and her own personal standards and saw that they consistently contradicted each other. Like, she believes, rightly so, that women are allowed to wear whatever they feel comfortable in, but she would complain that I was unreasonable for wearing bikinis to family beach days because it was inappropriate. Dan also realized she was trying to cut out his sister and literally every woman in his life, including his boss, insisting he get another job. By the time he had heard about my pregnancy, he told me he didn't want to be an absent friend through this, and had a serious conversation with Lauren. I won't go into details, but the result was that they are currently separated and both in therapy. Dan asked Lauren to move out, and she is currently staying with her mom, who is apparently convinced I am the devil. While I am sad for Dan's relationship having to end like this, I am happy to see that he is starting to learn what a healthy relationship is and that he will be able to be my friend through my pregnancy. My husband is excited to have his gaming buddy back. I reached out to Lauren with Dan's permission, letting her know I am here to talk in a therapy session if she felt like it would help, but I haven't received a response yet. Maybe that's for the best. I can't help but feel bad on some days because I know that a lot of this is born from insecurity. But I am trying to focus on the positives that both of them are in therapy and will hopefully move on to bigger and better things. I'm sorry if this update is a bit scattered as well, pregnancy brain has been hitting me hard. This update has been read and approved by Dan.